Imagine opening your eyes and realizing you've just woken up on the most dangerous island on Earth. At first, everything seems peaceful. You can hear birds singing, waves crashing against the shore, and the wind blowing through the trees. It almost looks like a tropical paradise. But then you notice something moving, not just one thing, hundreds of things. Snakes are slithering across the ground, wrapped around tree branches, hiding between rocks, and some are only a few feet away from where you're standing. Welcome to Snake Island, officially known as Ilha da Queimada Grande. This tiny island sits just off the coast of Brazil, and almost nobody is allowed to visit it. In fact, the Brazilian government has heavily restricted access because it's considered far too dangerous for the average person. So what makes this island so terrifying? It's home to one of the highest concentrations of venomous snakes anywhere on Earth. While the exact number is debated, experts estimate there are thousands of snakes living across the island's relatively small area. In some parts, you could be only a few steps away from another snake without even realizing it. And these aren't harmless garden snakes. Many of them are Golden Lanceheads, a species found almost nowhere else in the world. Their venom isn't just painful, it's designed to work incredibly fast. Because the island has very few mammal prey, these snakes evolved to hunt birds. When a bird is bitten, it can still fly away unless the venom acts quickly. Over thousands of years, the venom became incredibly potent, helping stop prey before it could escape. Now imagine that same venom entering your body. Suddenly, every decision you make becomes a matter of life or death. And believe it or not, the snakes aren't even the only problem you'd have to worry about. So let's say you somehow made it onto Snake Island. What's the very first thing you should do? Your first instinct might be to start walking around and look for food, water, or a way to escape. That would be one of the biggest mistakes you could make. Every step you take increases the chances of disturbing a snake that's perfectly camouflaged against the ground. Many venomous snakes don't chase people, but if you accidentally get too close or step on one, they'll defend themselves in an instant. And here's the scary part. Not every snake is easy to spot. Some blend almost perfectly into the leaves, rocks, and tree branches. You could spend several minutes scanning the ground only to realize there was a venomous snake sitting right next to you the entire time. That means simply walking across the island becomes incredibly dangerous. Maybe climbing a tree sounds safer. Unfortunately, that's another terrible idea. Golden Lanceheads are excellent climbers. In fact, they spend a lot of their time in trees because that's where birds often land. So instead of escaping the danger, you could end up climbing directly toward it. Now imagine you're getting thirsty. Fresh water is one of the most important things your body needs, especially in a hot tropical environment. But finding it isn't easy. There are no convenience stores, no rescue stations, and definitely no one waiting to help. Every minute you spend searching forces you deeper into the island, where you're more likely to encounter even more snakes. Even if you somehow avoided every single one, there's another problem most people never think about. You're completely alone. Snake Island has no permanent population, no hospitals, no emergency services, no nearby neighbors who might hear you yelling for help. If something goes wrong, you're on your own. And that's what makes this place so terrifying. It's not just the number of snakes, it's the fact that even a small mistake could leave you with no way to get medical treatment before it's too late. But let's say the worst actually happens. You get bitten. What happens next is even more frightening than most people realize. Let's say the worst-case scenario actually happens. You accidentally step too close to a golden lancehead, and before you even have time to react, it strikes. The bite itself might happen so fast that you barely register it. At first, it could seem like nothing more than two small puncture marks. But what's happening inside your body is a completely different story. Golden Lancehead venom is incredibly powerful. It contains toxins that can rapidly damage tissue, interfere with your blood, and cause severe swelling and intense pain. Without proper medical treatment, a bite can become life-threatening. Now remember where you are. You're not in a city. You're not even near a road. You're stranded on an island where help could be hours away, if anyone even knows you're there. And that's what makes every second count. You might think, I'll just call for help, but that's assuming you even have a signal. Many remote islands have poor or unreliable cell coverage. And even if you manage to make a call, getting a rescue team to your exact location wouldn't happen instantly. Meanwhile, the clock is ticking. Your body is using more energy, your heart is pumping faster, and panic can make the situation even worse. Some people think they could suck the venom out, tie a tourniquet around the bite, or cut the wound open like in the movies. None of those are recommended first aid treatments for snake bites, and some can actually make the situation worse. The safest thing to do is stay as calm and still as possible while getting professional medical care as quickly as you can. But on Snake Island, that's much easier said than done, because even if you somehow survive the bite, you still have one enormous problem. You're trapped on an island surrounded by the ocean. So how do you actually escape? That's where things get really interesting. At this point, escaping the island sounds like the only option, but getting off Snake Island is much harder than it looks. Your first thought might be to swim. After all, the mainland doesn't seem impossibly far away. The problem is that Snake Island sits about 35 kilometers, or roughly 22 miles, off the coast of Brazil. That's far beyond what almost anyone could safely swim, especially in open ocean. Even experienced long-distance swimmers would face strong currents, exhaustion, dehydration, and the constant risk of drifting off course. So swimming is almost certainly out of the question. What about building a raft? It sounds like a clever survival plan until you look around. The island doesn't exactly have a pile of useful supplies waiting for you. Building a raft sturdy enough to survive miles of open water would take time, tools, and materials you probably don't have. And every extra hour you spend on the island increases your chances of a dangerous encounter with another snake. Maybe you could light a giant signal fire instead. That could work, but only if someone is close enough to see it. And that's another problem. Very few people ever come near Snake Island. The waters around it don't see constant traffic, and because access to the island is heavily restricted, you can't count on another boat passing by anytime soon. Even if someone did spot the island, they might think twice before coming ashore. The island's reputation is so dangerous that many people know to stay away. Ironically, the very thing that makes Snake Island famous could also make rescuers hesitate before landing. So what are your chances of actually surviving? If you're prepared, extremely cautious, and unbelievably lucky, you might avoid getting bitten. But luck isn't a survival strategy. On an island filled with thousands of venomous snakes, eventually your odds start working against you. And there's one final fact about Snake Island that makes the entire place even more unbelievable. It's the reason these snakes exist there in the first place.